Hey, everyone, Ludwig here. So, when Clint Eastwood strolled into one of LA's top restaurants dressed in nothing but a simple polo and slacks, nobody recognized the legendary actor and director. That's when a waitress, with a sense of arrogance, made the biggest mistake of her career. She tried to kick him out and humiliate him, thinking he was just some random older customer. What she didn't realize, though, was that Clint didn't just have a reservation. He owned the whole restaurant. And what happened next? Well, it turned into a Hollywood legend. In true Clint Eastwood fashion, he turned this awkward moment into one of the most unexpected lessons on respect that the Grand Oak had ever witnessed. It was just another typical Friday evening at the Grand Oak. The newly renovated dining room buzzed with LA's elite, young tech moguls in sharp designer suits, social media influencers snapping photos of their gold leaf desserts, and old money families maintaining their weekly traditions. Among them, though, sat a man in a simple gray polo and slacks, sipping whiskey at his usual corner table. Most of the staff recognized him immediately. How could they not? But 6 months ago, Clint Eastwood quietly purchased the Grand Oak, and he had given strict instructions to the staff: treat him like any other customer. During his regular quality checks, Clint believed the real measure of a restaurant wasn't in how they treated celebrities, but in how they treated everyday people. Rachel, the newest waitress, didn't know any of this. Fresh from a prestigious hospitality school and working hard to build her own food influencer following, she spent her shift alternating between fawning over social media influencers and casting judgment on the underdressed man in her section. Thomas, the longtime manager, watched nervously from across the room, knowing that look in Rachel's eyes all too well. He had seen it before, a similar look she'd given a retired surgeon who dared to wear loafers instead of formal shoes. But tonight, things were different. Tonight, her judgment would have consequences she couldn't possibly predict. As Rachel's heels clicked toward Clint's table, Thomas held his breath. The veteran staff could feel the tension building. Clint, the calm man in the polo shirt, took another slow sip of his whiskey, his familiar half-smile barely visible. Rachel arrived at the table, her iPhone peeking out of her apron pocket. Her practiced smile, however, didn't quite reach her eyes. "Sir, I couldn't help but notice you've been nursing that house whiskey for quite a while now," she said. Clint looked up and met her gaze with the same steady calm that had faced down countless Hollywood executives. "It's a good whiskey," he replied. Rachel pressed on, her tone dripping with fake concern. "Maybe you'd be more comfortable at the bar. We're expecting several reserved parties at this table," she said, gesturing to the pristine white tablecloth. "This is typically for our dining guests." A young busboy named Miguel, who had immigrated from Mexico 2 years ago and worked hard to support his family, overheard the exchange while clearing a nearby table. He knew exactly who the man in the polo shirt was. He had seen every Clint Eastwood film with his father growing up. Miguel's grip tightened around his bus tub, fighting the urge to step in. "I'm comfortable here," Clint replied calmly, taking another sip of his whiskey. Rachel's professional mask cracked a bit. She glanced at her watch, then at a group of young tech executives waiting by the host stand. "Sir," she said, her tone now sharper, "our executive chef prepares a very exclusive menu. The prices," she paused, eyeing his casual attire with meaning, "reflect the caliber of our establishment." At the next table, an older couple who'd been regulars for 20 years shifted uncomfortably. The husband started to speak up, but his wife gently touched his arm. She recognized the look in Clint's eyes, the same look that had preceded some of cinema's most iconic moments. "I'm aware of the prices," Clint said softly, his gravelly voice carrying that familiar authority. "And I'm aware of the chef's work." Rachel's smile faltered entirely now. With a sharp, irritated movement, she pulled out her order pad. "Well then, sir, shall I explain our menu slowly?" she added, the final words dripping with a jab at his age. Miguel, still nearby, couldn't take it anymore. He stepped forward, his voice low but resolute. "Miss Rachel, maybe I should get Thomas. Stay out of this." Rachel snapped, glaring at him. "Go bus tables. That's what you're here for." She turned back to Clint, who had been watching the entire exchange with interest. This is your last chance, Rachel continued, her voice rising now, enough to attract attention from nearby tables. This isn't some diner off the highway. This is the Grand Oak. Perhaps in your day, things were different, but now we have standards. Clint slowly set down his whiskey. The gesture was subtle but commanded more attention than Rachel's outburst. A few of the older patrons recognized it, the same calm before some of cinema's most memorable moments. In my day, Clint began softly, raising an eyebrow slightly. Yes, your day. When people could just walk in anywhere, dress however they wanted, order the cheapest drink, and take up space meant for real customers. Rachel was fully committed now. All her bottled-up disdain for underdressed customers poured out in a rush. Times have changed, she shot back. This is a luxurious environment for people who appreciate modern luxury. Miguel had stopped pretending to clear tables. He stood frozen, watching the disaster unfold behind him. Thomas, the manager, was now quickly walking over, having realized the situation was spiraling out of control. Modern luxury, Clint repeated thoughtfully, testing the words. And what exactly does that mean to you, Rachel? Rachel blinked, caught off guard. She wasn't wearing a name tag, but she quickly recovered, assuming he had overheard another server use it. It means, she declared confidently, some places aren't for everyone. Our clientele expects a certain ambience. She gestured to the group of young entrepreneurs taking selfies with their gold leaf desserts. They get it. They respect what the Grand Oak represents. They're not here pretending to be something they're not. The irony of her statement hung in the air, and a few veteran servers exchanged knowing looks. Thomas was now just a few steps away, his face pale. Clint mused, a half-smile returning. Interesting choice of words. Listen, Rachel snapped, her patience finally gone. I've tried to be polite, but you clearly don't belong here. This isn't some set for one of those old cowboy movies. This is a prestigious establishment, and I won't let you ruin the experience for our real guests. The moment the words left her mouth, Thomas froze mid-step. Miguel dropped his bus tub with a crash, and the restaurant went eerily silent. The older couple at the next table audibly gasped. But Clint's expression didn't change. He simply reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and made a single call. Jerry, could you bring me the ownership papers? Yes, right now. And the renovation plans we discussed last week. He set the phone down and turned back to Rachel, who was now realizing just how wrong she had been. You see, Rachel, Clint began, his voice steady as ever, I've been coming here every Friday for the last 6 months. Sitting at the same table, ordering the same whiskey. You know why? 6 months ago, I bought this restaurant. Not for the prestige, not for the modern luxury, but because for 50 years, the Grand Oak represented something real, a place where genuine hospitality meant treating everyone with respect, no matter what they wore or how many followers they had. The silence was absolute. You could have heard a napkin drop. Jerry, the restaurant's longtime accountant, appeared moments later with a leather portfolio. He handed Clint the documents with a respectful nod and stepped back, fighting a smile. Rachel stood frozen, her order pad hanging limply at her side, the weight of her mistakes crashing down on her. You've insulted a customer, Clint said, his voice carrying that familiar tone of authority. But more than that, you've insulted Clint Eastwood. You've insulted your own boss. Not just any boss, but a living legend who's built a career on standing up against arrogance, just like the kind you just showed. Rachel's face started to pale. She was beginning to understand. Miguel straightened up a little, visibly proud of Clint's words. The older couple at the next table nodded approvingly. Even some of the influencers had put their phones down, caught up in the gravity of the moment. Clint continued, fixing Rachel with his legendary steady gaze. The question isn't whether I belong here. The real question is whether you understand what this place truly stands for. Rachel's eyes filled with tears as her carefully constructed worldview crumbled. What happened next stunned everyone, especially her. I could fire you right now, Clint said gently. But that's not what this place is about. Instead, I'm going to give you a choice. He gestured to Miguel, who stepped forward nervously. This young man tried to warn you. He recognized me, not from social media, but because he watched my films with his father. He understood something you didn't. Respect isn't about appearances. Clint turned to Miguel. Son, how would you like to start training as a waiter? We could use more people who understand what real service means. Miguel's eyes widened in disbelief and gratitude. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Then Clint turned back to Rachel. As for you, Rachel, your choice is simple. You can walk out that door and find another job at a place more focused on modern luxury, or you can stay and learn from Miguel and our veteran staff about what real hospitality means. Your call. Rachel wiped her eyes and looked around at the dignified faces of the longtime staff. She made her decision. I'd like to stay and learn, sir. If you'll let me. Good choice, Clint nodded, finishing his whiskey. Thomas quickly put Miguel in charge of Rachel's retraining. As the tension in the room dissolved, the older couple began to clap. Others joined in, not for the celebrity in their midst, but for the lesson they had just witnessed. A reminder that true class isn't about clothes or status, it's about how we treat one another. Today, the Grand Oak remains one of LA's finest restaurants, not because of its luxury, but because of its heart. And if you stop by on a Friday evening, you might just see a man in a casual polo shirt sitting at his usual corner table, quietly ensuring that the old values of respect and dignity live on. Hey, everyone, this was Ludwig. If you enjoyed this story about real class and timeless values, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Let me know in the comments about a time when someone judged you wrong and how you handled it. See you in the next video.